Very quickly, those end users that were communicating, and there were massive counterparties, big asset management firms and the likes, realized that okay, I'm communicating with 20 brokers. This is unmanageable. I'm double keying all over the place and making too many errors. And there are computers here that can't communicate with each other, and that's how this thing called FIX got invented. Right? And FIX is nothing else than a communication mechanism from A to B. Right? So originally, what they were doing is, instead of picking up the phone, I'm going to send you an electronic order, and by the way, you send me the confirmation back. No double keying the operational efficiency. Okay, but as those end users became more and more aware of what the executive broker was doing, and they realized that all they were doing was receiving an order, looking at the terminal, punching the order in the terminal, executing it in the market, and reporting back. And you're charging me $1 for that. Well, can I have the screen and I do it myself? Right? And I'll pay 5 cents for that. Right? And that's exactly what's happening. That's direct market access. We are, as members of the exchanges, we go through a very thorough onboarding process where we don't give screens to anybody. We go through a very thorough know your customer, the onboarding process, kind of party exposure analysis, we agree position limits and everything else, but then we give the end user the ability to execute on their behalf. They still have the phone available for complex orders, but they execute on their behalf. And then in parallel, the end users started also leveraging that technology, right? Because obviously, 20 years ago, it would take you 2 days to find out about the economic release of a figure. These days, anybody has it in real time on a computer, right? So when they were making decisions based on that type of indicators, they started building what I call down there decision-making algorithms, which were nothing else than, okay, I want to fit a series, especially if I'm a long-term asset management type of a fundamental investment firm, I'm going to fit a series of economic indicators into my model, and that's going to generate a signal. The signal is going to be, it now makes sense for you to continue buying this stock, or now makes sense for you to hedge the portfolio because chances are the market could do something, right? And that generates a signal. So what this firm said is, okay, you're telling me that there's a communication protocol called FIX, you're telling me you're comfortable with me accessing the market, and I'm telling you that I have signals being generated. Let's call this an algorithm that executes in the exchange. And that's what algorithmic trading is, a bit oversimplified, but that's what the decision-making algorithms do, which are the principal buy-side trading algorithms, right? What us as brokers offer to our clients is what I have up there on the second box, which is called decision implementation algorithms. The difference between those two is that one has some investment logic embedded into it, and some predictability logic. So they're trying to predict something, and based on that, they make a decision. The decision is buy me 100 boom futures, and that's when they often hand it over to the decision implementation algorithm that then decides, okay, if my mandate is to minimize the impact in the market, how do I buy those 100 boom futures to ensure the last 10 are not bought 20% more expensive than the first 95 or the first 90, right? So that's the difference between the two algorithms. As a broker, we offer the latter. We trust the academics and the buy-side firms that they are the ones who we don't offer algorithms that claim to be able to predict what the market does, because that's what these research firms they do for a living. Okay, and then the last channel, available to the investment community is what I have labeled there as 5, and obviously not 6. 5 is what we refer to as controlled sponsor access. Controlled sponsor access is where firms are saying, and they don't need to be, there's a perception that sponsor access is associated with high performance and high frequency and sophistication. It can be as simple as and I've had as a client, obviously, Spanish bank who had a retail website offering their end users the ability to trade futures markets, and they would say, Antonio, I know I can take your system, your DMA system, but that doesn't go well because I've already built my whole system connecting to my website and everything else. Can I not just have your exchange membership? I configure my system with your exchange membership. You sponsor me, right? You audit my environment. You ensure that it complies with the controls that you need as a minimum set of controls, and we'll talk about what they are in a minute. And I can access the market. That is sponsor access because they're not going through my system. But I'm comfortable that I have enough control over that activity that my membership and the activity en route into the marketplace is not going to put the whole ecosystem in jeopardy. Okay? Of course, the extreme is what was going on in the States, not so much here, but this whole naked access, which was where, I mean, if you look at who used to be the top volume producer at NASDAQ and the New York Stock Exchange, it was a company called Wedbush Morgan. Okay? You would think it would have been Goldman Sachs or Morgan Stanley, one of the big boys. It was Wedbush Morgan, based in the west coast of the United States, and I would say 90% of their activity was naked access. In other words, you become my client, I give you my exchange membership, feel free to do whatever you want, and find a clearer that can clear that activity for you. That was just not acceptable for the overall environment, right? And that's where most of the industry was very vocal. I mean, I myself visited the SEC several times in Washington, just to make sure that we understood that was a risk that we shouldn't be taking, right? Because there were not enough controls. I don't think that is the situation in Europe. In Europe, we're very clear about only offering direct access to exchanges when the proper controls are in place. Okay, so I guess the last part of my session is okay. So you keep talking about those controls. You seem to understand what the risks are and how to control them, right? I'm not going to claim that because there could be some other risks there, but there's certainly some quantifiable, understandable risks that we have been trying to mitigate and to address for a few years now, I would say. Okay, so when we look at this type of computer-generated activity, or even human-generated activity, when you have this ability to reach the market and to touch it without having a broker that tells you, hold on a second, you realize that that's a very big order. What are the risks? So the risks from a technical or even a human point of view, they're twofold. You could have this algorithm that we were talking about generating an order that's above the size that you wanted it to be, at which point you could have errors like the big error in the early 2000s in Japan, where the price and the quantity was the wrong way around, and you can imagine a single order just generates a market crash, right? And what do you do with that? And then you could have that algorithm or that human being, because what's the difference between an algorithm so-called running away and sending many orders to the market, or human being stepping in with a copy on a keyboard, on the enter key, that starts sending orders to the market that nobody wants. So how do we stop that? And that's where I have the concept of the pre-trade fat finger limits. So it is our strong position, I think I'm speaking on behalf of the rest of my co-panelists, that no single order should go into any marketplace without at least price and order quantity reasonability checks. So maximum order size, price reasonability, right? And when I talk about at trade, and at that point, ideally, one could argue this debate around whether you should do it pre-trade or right after the trade is done. I think don't want to go into a technical debate around what would be more effective, but ideally you need to have the ability to hold trading from any one of those channels that we've spoken about the minute you see that the total number of orders that you're receiving from that channel is abnormal, is greater than what you have agreed. So when I sit down with the counterparty, go, how many orders are you going to send me? I'm going to send you 100 orders a day. Okay, so you're comfortable if I shut down the connection, if I receive 105 orders? yes, and I'm going to thank you for that, right? And that's kind of the rules of engagement that we have in place with those clients and with every single one of them. Okay, and then obviously the third control is what we refer to as the post-trade, which is looking at relationships in aggregate, because we can have the so-called circuit breakers and we can have pre-trade controls, but reality is a risk management starts with the KYC. You need to understand what your client's going to be after. You need to understand what is the activity. KYC is a very standard process that we all brokers have, which is know your customer. That's the first thing we do when we onboard a customer, which is interview them, meet with them, understand how do you build your models, right? And you very quickly realize or very quickly get a feel as to whether or not there's enough controls in place. What is the risk you're taking versus the capital base of your company? What are the chances of your company being able to stand behind all the trades that you're sending? Okay, so that's what we call by post-trade / counterparty exposure, and we have all sorts of tools. So just to give you an example, every night we take every single one of our clients' portfolios and we run them through stress scenarios. So we have tools that literally, the third-party provided tools, that literally allow us to simulate a Lehman crash and September 11, and we can stress all those portfolios and see how far could the performance deteriorate in those type of stress scenarios. Right?
Why didn't you do that?
What, sir?
Why didn't you do that before?
No, we did.
Okay.
We did.
So you know.
We didn't have any of our customers default on the back of any of those events. They were there the following day. It's just that Lehman wasn't one of our customers, obviously. Okay, so that was that's on the control side of things, and then the second area that I think it's fair to have real concerns, and that starts going to the social side of things. It's market abuse, right? Market abuse and unfairness of access. So yes, it is true that there could be anybody trying to abuse the market, but you don't need to be a high-frequency trading firm to do that. You could be a human being, and there has been cases of human beings just flipping the book or layering the order book, trying to generate fictitious liquidity and things like that, right? I think every market participant, especially exchange members, and the exchanges and the marketplaces themselves have a responsibility to have to leverage that technology that's become available, not only to make money, but also apply that real-time technology to improve the way in which we implement these market surveillance techniques in the market, right? So I think that responsibility falls with the clearing firms and falls with exchanges. I am pleased to say that at least the clearing firms that I speak to, all of them have got this real-time, or as close as practical to real-time market abuse analysis and techniques in place, and I would say 90% of the exchanges do that as well. So it's mandated, and we can very quickly. But again, I've never come across a client where I need to look at the real-time feed to detect that they are layering the book or staffing quotes or anything like that, because that's a client we would have never onboarded. Yeah. And that's pretty much it. The last point was about a fairness of access, but a fairness of access with that, the way I would leave it is what do you think is fairer? Is it an exchange offering equal access at a price, but equal access to a colocation facility to anybody who wants to access it, or such a product not being available, and therefore anybody with the data center close to that exchange cutting sides on the deal with cutting deals on the side with whomever's willing to pay up. So that's a difficult one. And I'm going to leave it there.
Thank you very much.